grows the minimal amount because it doesn't want to send roots out and then die back. A tree planted in a swamp will grow surface roots so it can get oxygen because if it's underwater they can't breathe and they will die. Trees in lush soil go, I have much nutrients, let me grow. And a hardwood tree, let me tell you, stocks all the nutrients it's going to grow for the whole summer, or it takes inventory before the spring thaw. I know so many people, they have their hardwood trees and they ask me, why is my tree dying? It won't grow. I go, did you fertilize it? They go, yeah, in June. It's too late to fertilize in June. Only soft weak woods can you fertilize in June. The hardwoods that last and grow forever, and those like those big giant oaks in Europe that have been there for 1,000 years, they stock their nutrients before it runs up. They're ready for the whole summer. It doesn't matter if it's a drought. It doesn't matter if there's much nutrition or little. They take stock at the beginning. How many of us Christians wait for bad things, for the summer to happen and bring what it may before we decide how much nutrients we need? How many of us start before we know we need it, and we stockpile a treasure in heaven of knowledge, of wisdom and light, so that we can grow strong? Please don't answer that question out loud, because I think we'd all be embarrassed to. I have rarely personally met what I call on-fire Christians. I've met a few, and you know what? When I meet them, I am embarrassed. Because, like, I go to these conferences, a lot lately, full of Pathfinder leaders and directors and AY leaders, and they're telling us all the stuff they've done, and I start sitting smaller in my seat. Like, don't ask me. No, I haven't even thought of that one. Oh, you baptized how many because of an AY evangelism? What? You did primary evangelism? What do you mean your primary kids were preaching? They baptized how many? You know how big you start feeling? They start giving these reports and you start shrinking. It's hard to hold your head up high when other people are doing God's work and you realize that you haven't done a thing. It's almost enough for you to stay at home. But if you stay at home, you're in the shade and you get no light and you do not grow. So I have to stand out there next to those big oak trees and try to get some light myself and try to be as tall as they are. I need to take stock of some nutrients and I need to grow. Now I'm going to shift scenes here. We've talked about growing. My sermon has two major parts. That was the first part. A bit of a need there for growth. The second part can come along more personal. I hope we survive it. I've actually given a title to my second half. I didn't have one until last night, but I entitled my second half. It says, Waves Are Not That Big. Scientists have studied the oceans for years, and they say they know most of what there is to know about how the ocean works, how it moves, what happens, what causes bad weather to form, tsunamis, all this stuff. They know it. Just ask them to prove it with math on a chalkboard. Well, they said the last century waves could not get bigger than 50 feet high. It was fact. Absolute fact that waves did not get bigger than 50 feet high. Well, there was a research best law in this first decade of this century, which means just a few years ago. And they had all this research equipment on board. And these researchers were out studying potential effects of microorganisms due to global warming. To me, it sounds boring. Their story was not. They went out in the North Atlantic, a lovely place if you like cold weather, harsh oceans, and more cold weather. And they were studying in clear weather. It was summer, it was nice and clear. And they studied all this stuff that I couldn't even pretend to understand. Maybe some of the scientists in the room could tell me, but I might fall asleep. Because I build fences for a living. And that big, nice North Atlantic summer storm came by. And the waves got 30 feet high, not a problem. A little scary, not fun to be in. Well, not fun at all, actually. Very nasty. Anybody's ever been out in the water, when it starts getting choppier, you get nervous. bigger the waves, the more nervous you get. 30 feet, you're getting some pretty violent stuff. I believe the Navy calls that Sea Force 9 or 10, somewhere near it. It's about the point you back down the hatch, point your nose into the boat, into the storm, and hope you don't sink. But they're good at this, they know how to deal with it, and they do that. The waves get almost 50 feet high, they get a little panicked, but they have science on their side that tells them it ain't going to get worse. Isn't it good to know it can't get worse? That is good to know it can't get worse. And the storm ended. It only took about a week. I'm certain they were a little seasick, a little battered up, boat needed some cleaning, and they went back to work. And they were like, yes, we've weathered a nasty storm. Well, the next day, the sky was beautiful and clear. There wasn't a cloud in sight. And yet, the swells got a little bigger than they ought to when there's no storm on the horizon. They called into land saying, we're experiencing large swells out here. Has there been an earthquake on the ocean floor? And they went, no earthquake. Has there been a volcano in Greenland? No volcanoes in Greenland. Iceland maybe? No. Or we have abnormally large swells out here that are reaching 40 feet. And there's no storm in sight. They said, well, according to our science, according to the satellites, you are not having any problems. It is clear there is no reason for you to have an issue. They even suggested the crew might be exaggerating because they're a little seasick from a bad storm and they're just on edge. Now, I'll submit to you that people do that too in life, too. You start telling them you have a problem, and they look at your life and go, you're looking good to me. You're just a little nervous because of that incident last year, that one. Yeah, we're not going to go there. And you're like, you don't understand, there is swells bigger than there ought to be out here. This poor crew was sitting there when the swells got 55 feet high. They were radioing in a little panicked. And the Coast Guard said, your instruments are broken, they don't get bigger than 50. Now, their instruments told true for the last storm, but they were pretty certain they were right, but people were saying they were wrong. The waves got up to 60 feet high, and they got a little upset. Because it's a clear day, you do not have 60-foot wide waves that do not exist on clear days. Ask anybody. It doesn't happen. Especially in the North Atlantic. Just ask them. It doesn't happen. You might get waves on a beach in Hawaii. They're rumored to be those big ones out there, but nobody's actually measured them scientifically, and they probably exaggerate. Those surfers are uneducated, Just ask them. Surfers claim to get waves up to 85 after off the point of Hawaii. That's just what they say, though. Scientists don't always know. They think they know, but sometimes they don't have all the answers. This boat had all the scientific equipment. It was taking readings and observed a phenomenon which only people would claim to see, but science could not account for. They said it couldn't exist. When waves get over 50 feet high, they stop looking like giant swells. I've been told that a movie actually got something right a while back, which I almost never give movies credit for doing. Apparently there's a movie called Perfect Storm, which I didn't watch because I don't go for disaster movies. Life's too big to be a disaster to watch a disaster movie. And they said in that movie the waves looked like they get vertical, and people thought how inaccurate it was. That's what waves do when they get over 50 feet high. They start going vertical. Science doesn't know why. Water can't go vertical. Now, if you're on a boat and your waves reach 70 feet high and you're going vertical, you have an issue. A big issue.
Capsize.
How many of you guys know where your floor is when you go vertical? In front of you. That is correct. Now, if you're standing on the floor and your floor is now in front of you, where are you? This is not a pleasant thing to think about. I used to watch Red Skeleton skit, where a wife decides to get revenge on her drunken husband, and she comes home and she had a carpenter redo the room so the floor first walls now. She's sitting there eating dinner. The husband walks in and he's trying to figure out how come he can't get on the floor. He keeps trying to climb onto the falling onto the wall. I used to think that was funny. I'm not certain if that's funny anymore. Because if you go over a way, you come down the other side, you have a reversal. Which wall is which, and where the floor is again. When the waves get 80 feet high, and you're out in a storm that does not exist. When people start telling you your life looks perfect, and your waves are 80 feet high, I would hazard it's hard to get on your knees as a Christian. Your floor is not there to get on. Because we have an accepted norm where we believe our floors are, and they're usually under us, not behind us, and then not in front of us. You only have brief moments when the floor is a floor, and sometimes it's hard to get on your knees in that moment because you're trying to stand up on your own. You're too busy trying to get your balance back. You're saying, I'll have time for God when I can sit up straight and think. Some of us, when we get to the situation, people are telling us, you're okay. You're not okay. They say, you're okay. You're not okay. The waves are 85 feet high. Your floor is not there to pray on anymore. You can't see where you're going. In the old days, they had what they called lighthouses so you could see the coast and not hit it. When your wave is 80 feet high, I would hazard you can't see where you're going anymore. It's just up and down. There is no going anywhere. People say you're doing good, your ministry's fine, you're out in the ocean with your boat with all the research stuff. You have an excellent ministry, you have a cause, you're studying, and you're screaming, help! But nobody listens because your ministry's okay. They start giving you awards for your great ministry, and all you can do is want to know where your floor is. It's not a good situation. It's a terrifying situation because the waves reach 95 feet high. There's certain things that go through your mind. Like when we fall backwards to our death. You can't tell me going up a 90-foot wave and you no longer have a floor to kneel on, that this doesn't go through your mind. And the devil's malicious. He starts writing on the waves. You'll see white caps. These white caps are listed when you have your name on it. He starts writing your sins right across it. He says, incoming, like that. You forget that there's a God. You forget where you're going. It's up and down. It doesn't matter that you're on a research vessel doing God's work. There's no storm. Nobody can see it. You can come to church smiling your head off, believing your devil has you. Nobody else in the congregation understands. They've never seen a storm like that. There are rumors they don't exist. The kind of things surfers talk about. It gets bad when you're in that position. It's hard to remember that Jesus Christ is at the helm of your boat. It is very hard to remember that he went through a storm so bad he came down the other side, went underneath for 3 days and still came up. You can't see that when you're laying on your floor to the